Thank you so much for joining me. Boy, I tell you, over the last several days, the emails have been coming in just one right after another from people expressing their gratitude, the joy and the freedom that they are experiencing from coming to understand how God kept His word. I want you to know how much I appreciate those emails. It's just really, really exciting. Well, we're looking at the fact that Paul in 1 Corinthians chapter 15 quotes from Hosea chapter 13 and the prediction of the resurrection there. Now, let me remind you, to me this is such fantastic stuff. The book of Hosea breaks itself down into divorce, departure, and death. God was divorcing the 10 northern tribes. He was departing from them, and He was going to kill them. They were going to die, not biologically, but being sent off into captivity. But God, in His grace, predicted that in the last days, God would bring Israel back with Judah. By the way, Judah would eventually be sent off into captivity. Judah herself would experience the harvest that Israel had experienced, i.e. national judgment and destruction. Okay. But the Lord promised that in the last days, God would remarry Israel, He would return, and He would raise them from the dead. Once again, not biological death. That's not the focus, folks. So my hermeneutical question is, if Paul in 1 Corinthians chapter 15 was predicting the resurrection foretold by Hosea, and if Hosea is not talking about biological death, then upon what principle do we say that Paul is talking about resurrection from biological death? You see the problem there? We have to be able to prove definitively that Paul is radically changing what Hosea said. Now, do the New Testament writers sometimes redefine? Well, they certainly do. But how do we know they do? Because they tell us. And Paul never tells us. He's predicting something different from what Hosea said. Now, I want you to notice something that Hosea predicted. As he predicts the casting off of the 10 tribes, he turns in His grace and says, in the place where it was said, you are not my people, there it will be said, you are the sons of the living God. Then the children of Judah and the children of Israel shall be gathered together and appoint for themselves one king. Okay, when would that be? Now notice, Judah and Israel would come back together. And where it was said, you are not my people, there it will be said, you are the sons of the living God. When would it be? They shall appoint for themselves one head, one king. Well, in Hosea chapter 3, verse 4 and 5, the children of Israel shall abide many days without king or prince, without sacrifice or without sacred pillar, without ephod or teraphim. Boy, that's a rich text. Anyway, afterwards, after what? After many days, the children of Israel shall return and seek the Lord. Do you remember what Hosea chapter 5 said? The Lord said, I will depart and return to my place until they return. Until they seek the Lord their God and David their king. They shall fear the Lord and His goodness in the last days, or the latter days. Okay, so the time of the restoration of Israel, the time of the remarriage of Israel, the time of the return of Yahweh, the time of the resurrection would be in the last days. So Peter stands up on the day of Pentecost and said, this is that which was spoken by the prophet Joel, it shall come to pass in the last days. Peter is affirming that he was living in the days foretold by Hosea. Not only that, boy, you got to catch this. Peter was anticipating what? The reception of the inheritance that was incorruptible, undefilable, and that does not fade away. 1 Peter chapter 1, 3 and following. That's the resurrection of the change from mortal to immortality. 1 Corinthians 15:54. You see? And what did Peter say? First of all, who's he writing to? Well, he's writing to the diaspora. 1 Peter chapter 1. To the saints of the diaspora. Folks, that's the 10 northern tribes. It's not Gentiles who are now being called Israel. This is about the fulfillment of Hosea. And he said Christ was ready to be revealed. 1 Peter 1, 5 and following. And he said Christ had come in the last days. 1 Peter chapter 1, verse 20. He's saying once again that the time foretold by the Old Testament prophets, i.e. the time foretold by Hosea, had come. Oh, but watch this. 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 9. You are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, His own special people, that you may proclaim the praises of Him who hath called you out of darkness into His marvelous light, who once were not a people, but who are now, once who had never obtained mercy, but now have obtained mercy. You were once not a people, but now you are the sons of the living God. Peter is announcing in unequivocal words that the time of the fulfillment of Hosea was present. They were living in it. It was being fulfilled in their day and their time. I don't have time to demonstrate how he demonstrates the fulfillment of Hosea 3:5. But notice that Peter was expecting the imminent consummation at the coming of the Lord. He said Christ was ready to judge the living and the dead. 1 Peter 4, verse 5. He said the end of all things has drawn near. Verse 7. And he said, the time, literally the divinely appointed time for the judgment has arrived. Folks, words could not be clearer. Intertextuality could not be more powerful. The time that Paul anticipated for the resurrection, taken from Hosea, Peter says unequivocally, undeniably, and irrefutably, that time had come. They were living in the days in which the resurrection was on the verge of happening. Listen, you need to get a copy of my 30-lesson series on Hosea, showing the correlation between Hosea and 1 Corinthians 15 and Peter and other New Testament texts. This is wonderful material. Go to my website, donkpreston.com or BibleProphecy.com, and order the material. You will be absolutely thrilled that you got this material. So we'll see you on the flip side.